Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me on this webinar talking about moving out of lockdown. My apologies, Kerry cannot join us today. She's not very well. Um, so I'm apologising for that, but we will do our best to look after you. This webinar today is a high-level look at what you need to do coming out of lockdown. We will be covering the detail with our panel of experts in a masterclass in a couple of weeks. I think the first one, we're doing two of those, and the first one is on the 15th and the second on the 22nd, when we know a little bit more detail of exactly what is involved. So our Action Coach, our mission is to help as many people as we possibly can. And this is throughout the whole of the UK. We want to help people who are trying to survive this current economic crisis and to try and get them through where we are. Heard on the news yesterday that the East Midlands is going to be quite badly affected because we're quite highly reliant on manufacturing. So which is obviously something that, because of social distancing, is going to find it difficult to get back to normal. So we will need all of our small businesses that possibly can to be the best that they can be. Long term, Action Coach works with business owners to help them achieve their dreams for their business and to get a profitable business that will work without you. To try what we'd like our business owners that we work with to get is to actually to be living the dream that they want, both within their business, and that will impact on what their life they can have. So yes, it's very important that we help you all survive. If you have family business, we want you to be able to pass that down. So that's why we're putting on these webinars. We've done a number of them over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and we've got another whole program coming up just to try and educate as many as possible of you. Just so I have a quick idea of who's on the call and what stage your business is, could you just pop into the chat box where you are in your business, whether you are still in lockdown, whether your business is trading, or whether you are starting to trade, or whether you've got plans to trade in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, quite a lot depends on what Boris Johnson says on Sunday, but it'd be great to see to hear where you are. So there is a chat box and a Q&A. If you could just put in either of those where you think you are in your business, that would be great. Great. We have a design business that's fully operational, and I've been following this person on. I've been following Simon on LinkedIn. He's doing a fantastic job. And Belinda is offering a huge amount of support to local businesses. So that is fantastic. Thank you, Belinda. Great. So, 95% furloughed. That's quite a high percentage, isn't it? So we've got a mixture of people who are working and a lot of support going on. But we've also got people who are in this situation where they can't trade. Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at 5 elements. First of all, we're going to start with mindset. It's something that in Action Coach we do look at quite a lot. We're going to have a little reality check and then talk about the change, being ready for change. We're going to talk about being prepared for the sprint. That'll become obvious in a minute. And hopefully you can go away with a few things to help create a plan for what you're going to do next. So on this next slide, you can see where we think the transition, the movement through the COVID-19 crisis is going to evolve. We've got 5 distinct areas. We've got being in lockdown, and as we went into lockdown, there was a lot of work to do getting our staff sorted. There was a lot of work to do trying to find what government assistance was available, what we could do, what we couldn't do. Um, Personally, I went through quite a journey of this isn't working. I had to get my own head in the game first, so there was a lot of work that I had to do for me. Um, we we are now are doing as much as we can to support other businesses, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who, as soon as we went into lockdown, went into care and compassion mode. There are a lot of others that went into a sort of siege mentality. So uh, that's lockdown, and hopefully most people have gone through that phase now, and they're now into the second phase, which is okay. We know where we are. What can we do moving forward? So, what is it that we can do to make sure that we get out of this business, this whole situation, with a business that is still working for us? So the things that you'll need to be looking at there is what actually you want when you come out. We've spoken to a number of business owners who actually want to change their business quite substantially, and this is a perfect opportunity for them to stop and to think and to reflect. You're looking at what products and services you can sell now, what you need to be selling in the future. So it's looking forward to what's going to be happening. And then if we're expecting some plans on Sunday, and then at that stage we'll know a little bit more about when we can come out of lockdown. So what we need to be doing between now and when we're allowed out of lockdown is actually putting the plans that we've been making into effect. Now we'll have timelines, so we can actually say, make a plan for staff return, and we can start looking at talking to our staff, um, and working out how we're going to work, talking to our suppliers, everybody that we need to talk to make sure that works. And then once we're allowed out of lockdown, there will be a period of very immense activity. It will be very intense. There'll be a lot of pent up demand. So it will be quite a busy period, I think. And then once that initial sprint is over, we'll be settling back down into our businesses, and then we can start to grow them. We'll be competing probably on a completely different landscape than we're used to, but hopefully we can then start to grow again. So the first thing I was going to talk about is mindset. But before I do that, has anybody got any particular questions about this pathway that I have outlined very quickly there? And we will come back to some of that later. No, okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is having a powerful mindset. As business owners, our mindset will underpin everything that we are, that we have, and that we do in business. And without a strong mindset, we are not going to survive the crisis, as well as some of our competition who have healthier mindsets. So it's important for us to start taking the power back into our lives. One of the worst things about COVID when it hit was we were all completely powerless to affect what was happening on a world stage, because not being an, an expert in virus, not being a healthcare professional, I wasn't able to help in that way. And so therefore I felt a little bit out of control. And I think that's personally probably what quite a lot of people felt. and especially when our businesses started to be impacted almost overnight, we did feel a bit out of control. So it's important to start thinking about what we can control, and to work out where the power is in our thinking. One of the, and some of you will have seen this before, this next slide. Um, it's an action coach absolute fundamental principle that we have, that when you are a business owner, you really need, in fact, most people in life really need to be thinking about uh, owning their actions. And when you come to understand that you are where you are because of your own actions and your own decisions and your own behavior, you can start to move on and you can start to make a huge difference in your life. So the things um, below the line, the blame, the excuses, the denial. Um, Certainly, this was me at the beginning of COVID-19. You know, I just was crawled under the bed. I really didn't want to acknowledge what was going on, and it was very much a why me? Why is this happening to me now? And then we moved on. So now we're thinking, how can I move on? How can I help? And we are starting to take ownership. Well, we're starting it to, we've been doing it for a little while, but we are now taking ownership of what we're doing. We are holding ourselves accountable for these things. So we are measuring what's going on, and we are um, actually telling ourselves that we need to do this. We're talking to other people and holding them accountable, and they're holding us accountable. And we are now responsible for our own actions. So we are not wearing what Paul McGee talks about as wearing the victim t-shirt, which is a fantastic phrase that I love, because it really does encompass what this is all about. You know, am I the victim here? No, thank you. I don't want that t-shirt anymore. I'm going to be a winner. I'm going to be owning my own thing. So how are you guys feeling? Is anybody here wearing the victim t-shirt? Does anybody want to get rid of that victim t-shirt? It is all in the thinking. So we start thinking about how powerful we are, taking the power back to ourselves. And again, this Paul McGee, he has a formula: E plus R equals O. It is the gift of all of us to choose how we react to events. And how we react to events will affect the outcome. So event plus response will equal the outcome. And it's at that point between the stimulus and the action. So it's when the event has happened, we can pause and think, what should our reaction be? Where should we be moving on? And I'm sure that some of you can think of a instance where you have reacted instinctively, a situation where you have just acted instinctively. If you think back to that situation, if you'd stopped and thought, would things have been better? Would the outcome have been better? And I'm not talking about the survival instinct that will, turn and run if the tiger turns up in the boardroom. It's not that sort of thing, because obviously we then rely on the animal within to get us out of that problem. We're talking about actually, the normal things that we face in business. The times when you're sitting trying to do something, and one of your teammates comes and says, "Can I interrupt you?" And the first thing is, go away, I'm busy. And actually, if you stopped and then started, the outcome will be a huge amount of people. I'm really, really pleased, Simon, to hear that you've never owned a victim T-shirt. That's absolutely fantastic. We won't be buying you one either. Um, so some of you have seen this change curve before, either from us at Action Coach, or it's something that's has its origins in the the grief process, and it's a very similar thing. And it's a question of moving through that change curve, through all those negative emotions, to acceptance. Now, some people move through this incredibly fast. Somebody in my BNI, he was almost the day after lockdown, he was on to problem solving. But when we were talking about this, it's because he was in a change mindset, because he had been looking at how his business needs to change after Brexit. So he was already in a change mindset. So the whole thing was just another change. Let's sort it out. So he was already in problem solving mode, um, and we do need to make that movement through. But once we're in acceptance, we can start moving on problem solving. So hopefully, all of you are now in acceptance, and all of you do have a strong mindset. If you don't have a strong mindset, I'm not going to ask you to put that in the chat box or anything, but I would suggest that maybe you would like to grab a virtual coffee with me or one of my teammates in Action Coach, and we can help you work out what you can do to move along the curve a little bit better. Okay, so the second part of my what I want to talk to you about today is about having a reality. And it's very easy sometimes to view our businesses through a bit of a rose tinted glasses, and to actually say that this is what our business is, and to not look in reality at what is going on. We need to actually face up to the reality of how our business is doing. And we can only do that if we are in control of our business. If we can only do that if we know our business. So you need to be looking at your numbers even more at the moment than you probably were. So it is something that actually, let's look now. And whenever we start working with people, when we're coaching them, whether that's a group coaching or one-to-one, we focus on the numbers. It's one of the first things we do, because we really need to make sure that the businesses actually know the numbers. And it doesn't matter what business you are in, you still need to know your numbers. And it may, so we're coaching some accountants, and it may be that those accountants are great at doing their bookkeeping and everything else, but do they know the customer numbers? Do they know the operation numbers that are going through? So we're working, there's always something to be working on. So numbers are not just your P&L and your cash flow. It's also to do with what your market share is, what products are being sold and how, what your team are doing, and whether they're meeting their KPIs, what's happening with them, and operations with how things are moving through your business. So it's really, really important that you actually know what is going on in your business. Is your team happy? Are they moving on? I don't need to labour this anymore. I think you probably all know what I'm talking about. We just need to know where we are. Because the thing is, if we don't know where we are, then it's very, very easy for us to start sliding down this demise curve. This curve came from came to me from an accountant who used to work a lot with insolvency practices in the UK. And what this is saying is that there is a long way where you can still turn your business round. But there does come a point where there is no turnaround. And if you have lost control of your business, you are likely to lose your business. And then the next point on your slide is liquidation. Now, this is a reality I think that quite a few businesses are going to be facing because they haven't been aware in time of what their business is doing to move them forward. And now is the time to absolutely know what your business is doing and to have control. As soon as you lose control, the business is gone. So do make sure you have it. The earlier you are aware of problems, the less steep the climb out of this curve is. So the turnaround will be easier. So that is very, very important. We need to know where we are on this bit on where we are at the moment. How is how is that for everybody? Does everybody? I don't want to just sort of like say doom and gloom. It's just very, very important that people know where their business is. So how are we in this group today? Do people actually know where their business is? Are they happy that they understand that their business is exactly where they think it is? Fantastic. And sometimes you don't want to look at these numbers because you're afraid of what you might see. But it's better to have the information, then you can deal with it. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So we've got a lot of people who do know where they are at the moment. Yeah. And we've got a great point there in the chat about what happens to the people that we're in our community and how they are going to react to this crisis. So when we're coaching people, we're trying to get them to look outside and to take best guesses of the companies they're working for, so they actually can. It gives them more control. So instead of saying, "I don't know um, if our customers will survive," we'll say, "Well, okay, look, let's look at your clients. Let's see where they are and where you think the likelihood is of them still being there and of them still coming back to you to do business when we go back to normal or whatever normal looks like when we're out of this." Um, so yes, we do need. Yes, and Jackie, we were talking earlier, and she has changed her business model, and we've been talking to quite a few businesses who are doing that, and speaking to somebody again this morning who's just said, "I do not want to ever be in this situation again, where my business just goes overnight. So what can I do to protect it in the future?" And it could have gone the other way. It could have been that the internet was cut off at its knees rather than our location. And if that had happened, where would we be? Sort of our offline businesses may well have suffered some procedural systems, but they would have been in a better position than our online businesses. But it was just at this time that it was our physical presence that's been cut off. That's fantastic. We're hearing some really positive things from you guys. So as I said, understanding what your options now um, is the first step to moving forward. There is on the website we have a 10-point pivot checklist, which I can share with you guys afterwards. It is on our website as a download, which just goes through the 10 areas that you need to look at and what you need to, some of the questions you might need to ask yourselves. So this, we're now into the next stage of being prepared to change. None of you here, you're not a tree, you're not a building, you're people, and you can change and you can make those decisions to move on. We haven't had one business at all globally, I think, that has not been affected by this crisis in some form or another. It's not just UK. So the banking crisis affected some people and not others. and it was uneven, and some countries and some weren't. I was watching a program yesterday, I think probably the news, that was talking about the impact of the coronavirus um, on big game in the reserves, and I just hadn't even considered that before yesterday. So you know, the fact that the Western tourists aren't going to these big game reserves has meant that actually they don't have the money coming into the economy, and therefore people are hunting these wonderful animals for food because they don't have anything else. So there's you know all these effects, these things that are being affected, um, not just you know our businesses in the UK. We tend to sort of well, you know, it's very tempting just to think about our own business, but actually, you know, everybody has been affected. So everybody is going to change. So, what a fantastic time to change. So, get your priorities right and work out what they are. Once you've worked out what your priorities are, what your vision is for the future, then we can move on. So, these are the 10 areas that we think are the most important things that you look at when you're working out what you're going to be doing in your business. As I said, there is more detail um, on the website. Uh, we talked about mindset, having that very strong, not just for you, but for your team. No, excuse me a second. So making sure that you are the leader, so you need to be making sure that your business is working properly. Your mindset is strong, but also, you know, keeping an eye on your team members to see what their mindset is like. Um, um, and there will be changes. So looking at your business structure again, you know, Jackie was sharing earlier, she changed quite a lot of what she's doing. And as I say, we've seen quite a lot of businesses that are going to change their business structure. So we look again, we find out where we are, and we work out, is that going to work in the new system? So then we think, right, no, we're going to change this, and where are we going to change it to? Communications is absolutely vital through all of this. You need to keep connecting with people, with your suppliers, your customers, your staff members, your wider audience, your community. Absolutely anybody you can think of, talk to them. Um, Apart from anything else, it will ease the loneliness that we're all feeling, and aid that connectiveness that we need in this time of lockdown. Um, so yes, let's keep doing marketing and sales. Um, the way we market our businesses has had to fundamentally change. We are moving into coming from a place of compassion, coming from a place of empathy, actually talking and building relationships with people rather than quick fire sales or marketing very hard messages that may have dominated in the past. So we're moving much more into a relationship building and a marketing compassionate sales, you know, and having talks with people about how to support them, which will lead to them supporting you. We're looking again, as I said, about what products and services are we have available. Talking again to a business owner this morning. She used to small business. She's a therapist, so hands-on. She sees people in the consultation rooms. Well, that's obviously not something she can be doing at the moment, although I think she's going to be starting um, emergency treatment soon. But she's now started to promote the different part of her business, which was the essential oils that she uses in the delivery of her treatments. So it's looking at those products. What can you do if there is anything you can do? Your supply pipeline. Now, it is absolutely no use you turning up for work next Monday morning and to find that your suppliers have also turned up for work next Monday morning, because unless you work on you know, you order when you receive the order from your customer, you will have nothing in. And if you're in a manufacturing industry, or where you've got to put things together in order to pass them on, you're going to be, it won't work. You need to make sure your delivery and your suppliers are working. So you need to look at that. And, are your suppliers still in business? Have you been talking to them? Are they still working? Because if they're not, you need to look and source new supply for that. What are your workforce doing? Speaking to HR company earlier, and they are um, they are absolutely convinced that they will see a huge swell in the number of people that are going to be requesting flexi time. And how do you deal with that? If 50% of your staff come and ask you for flexi time, what is that going to look like? How do you approach that? What do you say that to? If you're going back to work and the kids are still off school and you've got a large workforce that are homeschooling, again, how is that going to work for you? So you really need a lot of questions that we've never ever asked ourselves before. We're going to have to look at. What are the new opportunities in your business? Um, there are companies now. I heard of a company that I don't know too much about yet because I haven't found it out. I only heard about it earlier today. Who are making devices that beep when somebody else is within 2 meters of them. Which would never. I mean, why would you even have bought anything like that earlier? But now I can see that being something that it may well be in health and safety. Um, a product that is a new opportunity for people. Um, PPE. If you're a manufacturer of clothes, can you switch into doing masks or something like that? So there's lots of new opportunities, and they are just the most obvious ones that have come to mind. So yes, so Simon, you found new marketing opportunities. Uh, and uh, I think I'm right that you're making the screens for people who are, in workshops, health and safety screens and things like that, and um, markers on the floor so that people are standing in the right place. Things like that. That just, we just wouldn't even have been. Why would we even have wanted that beforehand? Um, Last two, we're going to look at our education and training. We are going to be looking at some of our staff who are coming back to do a different job than they went off doing. You mentioned earlier that you've got 95% of your staff on furlough. Now, are they coming back to do the same job that they um, that they were doing before? Or are we going to have to sort of like spend some time training them up, cross-skilling them, doing different things? What is that going to look like? And then finally, our measures of success will have changed. So what do they look like now? And as I was saying right earlier about knowing your business, you're talking then about getting measurements, and what measurements are they? So what are the new measurements in your business that will tell you whether or not you're moving towards success or failure? Am I doing, guys? Have I lost you? Are you still? Does this all making sense? Wonderful. Cross skilling. Great. Well done. Some very positive thoughts coming through. Thank you. So, when you're looking at each of these 10 items, we need to make sure that for each of them, we know where we're going. Um, when you're looking for change, there's 5 elements that you need in order for that change to be a lasting change. We've talked before on these courses about a formula for change, which was the thing that makes change happen to start with. this is what happened. This is to continue to get the change to actually work for you. So first of all, you need a vision. You then need the skills to make that happen. So we're talking about cross training and upskilling. You need an incentive. So people need to be incentivized to do that job or to change what they're doing. What does that look like? It might be your personal incentive, and that incentive might be, if I don't do this, I won't have a business. Um, but what does that look like for your team member to be upskilled? Yes, it may be if you don't do this, you don't have a job. But is there something else there that could be used for that? What resource do you have? Do you need different resources now? Do you have all the things you need to um, move that on to the next level to actually fulfill what you want to do? And that could be as simple as getting extra admin help because you're just too busy delivering everything you're delivering, and you need somebody to actually file the orders or to pick up the phone because whatever is happened before can't happen now. And you need a plan, and you need an action plan. And you guys can read the what happens if you don't have one of these elements uh, as well. If you're missing, so if you looked at one of the things that you need to change, how clear are you that you have all five of these, and you're scoring yourself 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10 on each of these. So if you have all five and you're a 10 out of 10, you get a 50. So there's a maximum of 50 points on the table. If you took one of those areas that you need to change, what score would you give yourself? Anything, any score of 1 to 49 will start highlighting what you need to work on. If you've got a score of 5, I'm afraid you're in real trouble and you need to work on everything. Um, I would suggest that unless you've got an 8 across the board, you've got to work on that element before you put the plan in place. Does that have I explained that properly to everybody? Does everybody understand what you'll need to do in order to make sure you've got a plan that works? Because the last thing you want to do is come back out of this COVID crisis where there's been a huge amount of fear and uncertainty, and to create more confusion or anxiety and frustration. And also, if you haven't got a plan, you're just going to end up going around in circles, doing this and that didn't work, doing that and that didn't work. So it's just making sure that that you have all these elements in place. So when you're looking at your plan, it does actually encompass everything, and you will get change that lasts. Okay. So back to our timeline. We're out of lockdown, and we've been told we can go for it. We can restart our businesses. Now, some people will be in this stage already because they have already pivoted their business, changed what they're doing, and they are going for it massively at this moment in time. You think about all the internet providers, all of the people who are used to doing things online and can still do things online. The web developers. Everybody now needs a website. So some people are already in this sprint phase, but for the majority of us, when we will start to sprint may be decided on Sunday. And this is a sprint. It is not a long distance race. So maximum power for a short period of time. If you look at Usain Bolt as opposed to Mo Farah, Usain Bolt has a huge amount of power in his arms and his legs, and he's a very he's big, a powerful person, whereas Mo Farah looks very thin in comparison. But you know, they are built for different races. You want Usain Bolt on your team at this moment in time because you're going to be sprinting. So you've got 100 meters, not 100 miles here. So maximum effort, what does that look like? Maximum effort, not just for you as the business owner, but for the entire team. There's a huge amount of pent up demand, possibly. What does that look like? You've got to make up for that time that you weren't working. For those of us who weren't working, that we really do need maximum effort. And even if you have been working, as soon as lockdown ends for your industry, you will suddenly have all of this competition that's been taking it easy for the last 6 weeks that is going to come on the line. So you need to get there first. I'd say lead from the front. As business owners, you are the leader of your tribe. You need to be there for them. You need to be seen to be leading. We have a webinar next week on leading from the front, being a virtual leader, and actually, what you have to do virtually. If you are good at leading virtually, you will be good at leading a team when you get back together. You've made a plan. We made a plan in the last section. We're going to follow the plan because we don't have time for thinking at this stage. We have made a plan. We've worked out what we're going to do. We just get on and do it, blasting through this plan. We're going to look after our existing customers first because our existing customers are the ones that we know and we love and we've been dealing with for a long time, but they're also our cheapest customers because we don't have to pay for marketing to get them. We've already done that way back when. So we look after them first. And we're going to test and measure. Testing and measuring means that if you got your plan wrong when you were doing it, if there's an element there that you thought would be working and isn't going to, you can actually find that out as quickly as possible. So if you've had a marketing campaign that you thought, this is great, this is really, really working, and as soon as you put it out there, then you will find that it bombs, nobody's interested, nobody sees it. If you're testing and measuring, you'll see that straight away. You'll be able to know exactly that that is not the right message, so you can just tweak it then. So that is being prepared for the sprint. I'm glad to see that we have got some sprinters in our group today, so that's fantastic. So it does prove that we are all on this journey at different times, and I think we will have a gradual comeback. Some industries will be allowed back earlier than others, and therefore we will see our emergence at different times. So just because you're not doing the same thing as the guy next to you doesn't matter, because you will be on a different timeline through this. So what preparation is the key for everything. We think there will be massive amounts of pent up demand, but your own business is best. So what your business will look like, and where that is. If there isn't any demand coming out of this, then you're probably in the wrong business, and you probably need to rethink now what you are going to be doing. I'm just thinking of people like hairdressers. We're all, well, us ladies anyway, will be all rushing to the hairdresser as soon as they're opening, because we're all starting to, look in the mirror and think, really. So that's something that there will be that. So how are you going to cope with that? Do you have enough staff on the line for that? Make sure, as I said earlier, that your supply chain is going to be there for you, that your processes are in place. if you are reopening a building, what does that mean? Do you need to get the plumber, the heating engineer in first to check that you haven't got Legionnaire's disease in your boiler or whatever else it is that needs to happen when you open up something that's been closed for a while. And think about what you could lose if you don't go into this prepared. So make a plan. Uh, plan. You are going to plan. We're saying you're going to market your way out of this. You're also going to plan your way out of this. Just make sure you plan. Make sure that on every element that you need to change, you are looking at what you need to look at. There are, I think, 5 elements that you need to actually, really make a detailed plan about. The leadership, how are you going to get back? What are you going to be doing? What are you doing with your team? How are you going to get them back in? If you've got 95% of your workforce that are furloughed, you're going to have 95% of your workforce coming back in with interviews, coming back in with what's going to happen. You're going to have to teach them how to be back in the workshop, in the factory. What does that mean for them? How are they safe in that place? And there's been great features about Bombardier on the line recently in the East Midlands about what they're doing to get their workers back safely. They've got markers on the floor, crosses where they have to stand at the morning briefing, things like that you may want to think about. And again, we are going to be covering all of these areas on our detailed technical masterclass that's happening next week. So your team, your operations, how are you going to service your clients? You're moving, actually, what does that mean? How do I going to get the product from A to B? What am I going to do? Ever think about operations? Lots of different people in here, but it could be as simple as, I can't get to the post office now. Can I move online to send the agreement? How am I going to move all that through from um, how am I going to cope if half of my workforce can't come in because I haven't got a big enough factory to have them in? There's not space enough for them. What's that going to look like? So you need to have a plan. Your finances, again, are banging on about the numbers all this time. But actually, what is finance do you need? What does your cash flow look like? Have I got enough money to pay for all the things that I need to pay for, bringing everything back when the furlough scheme ends and the government support is no longer available for my staff? Can I still afford to pay them? And if I don't pay them, can I still afford to how will that affect my operations, my sales? And lastly, technology. You're going to have I don't think we're going to go back to what it was before. So you are going to have people who are remotely working. You are going to be a lot more dependent on technology. If you have got part of your team, when you go back to work, part of your team are at home. Some of them are in the factory, and some of them are, in offices, maybe somewhere else. You will need to use things like, I don't know, Teams or Zoom rooms or something, and you'll need to be making sure you've got all of that in place. So hopefully most of you have already got your plan. Yeah, great. So where are you on this COVID-19 timeline? I think Simon's obviously in an action phase and maybe moving now into phase 5. I'm not sure. There's others of you who are in the phase 3. There may be that you're actually in phase 2. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that this is where we need to move through. So if you do need, if you are uncertain of what the next stage is, then get together with one of our coaches and we can help you to move on. What we've had in the yeah, so we are great, Nick, that business owners are reviewing processes and systems, this is the ideal time to do it, to make sure things go back better than they were before. We've redesigned the studio. Everybody's got screens. Wow. Okay, so it sounds like you're really on the ball. Yeah, and we can't actually say the plan is not going to be complete until we have a timeline. Once we've got that timeline, we can kick off, and it's going to be a question of keeping the plan updated and moving on, moving it as new information comes out. Can we use that? The change in the information from the government is not quite as much as it was right at the beginning. So we are moving in a slightly less frantic information gathering stage, but yeah, just make your plan and then just keep adapting it as we know more. And lastly, you know, that last phase where we we're as back to normal as I think we're going to get. You know, what does that mean? We don't know um, when we'll be fully back to normal. It may be in 2020, it may not be until 2021. And in fact, it probably won't be until we have a vaccine or a cure. So, you know, we are probably in this for the long haul. But there have been some great things that have come out of COVID-19 crisis. Well, not the COVID-19 crisis itself, but actually been having to be working in a different way, because we have been forced to work in a different way. We have found strengths within us, and we have found better ways of doing things. So there will be things that you want to keep in place permanently. So acknowledge that and take them on board. Talk to your competitors, because they might have changed. You know, they might have changed, and you might be able to borrow what they've done. You know, it may be something that you're thinking, you know, I'm not talking plagiarism here, but you know, if you see somebody doing something that works, then you should be looking at it and will that work in our business? What are your customers are doing? You know, are they expectations changed? One of the things before lockdown was that if you ordered something on the internet, you immediately expected it to come the next day. Well, that hasn't been possible. So maybe people won't go back to thinking it has to happen, turn up the next day. I don't know. Without you talking to your people, you won't know these things. Okay, so you need, hopefully we've covered quite a lot in this short hour that we've had. It is time now for you to take action. You need to make sure you are prepared. You need to make sure to change your business. You need to make sure that you know where you are. You need to mentally prepare that this is going to be hard work and get that ready for yourself, and make a plan for each thing that you have decided that you're going to change. And then you're creating your vision of the future. If you don't have a vision of the future, again, get with one of our coaches and speak to somebody about creating a vision of where you want to be in 5 or 10 years' time. We did a goal setting webinar and workshop a couple of weeks ago. That is on our website as well. And you know, you might get some ideas from that. Just so we have 5 minutes left. So what I'd like everybody to do is to write down 5 ideas that they need to take action on now. If you have any questions for us, could you put it into the question box? And I will just explain how we at Action Coach work, what we can offer for you going forward. We are doing these workshops, as I said, webinars. They are free. The webinar is happening every Thursday, and the workshop is happening every Tuesday. you're very welcome to come on both. And if there's anything you really want to work on with the help of a coach, then come on the workshop. We previously offered 5 clarity sessions a month. These are free coaching sessions, 2-hour coaching sessions, where we sit down with the business owner and go through what they want from their business. Pure coaching sessions, they're gifted. We are currently aiming to do 5 of those a week. So if you do know anybody who would like to take advantage of a clarity session, please put them in touch with us. That would be really helpful for both us and them. Our coffee club will be starting up either next week or in a couple of weeks' time. It is a monthly get together online of small business owners who want to learn how to run a business better with a bit of networking, a bit of accountability, a bit of peer pressure, all of that in there. It's a really, really lovely a group of way of finding out more for your businesses. We have Action Club. We have suspended that slightly because we're now working one-to-one with those people until the end of COVID lockdown. That will be getting going again as a fortnightly club, talking again, education, mix of education and coaching. We have our Munter Club, which is a 1 to 3, so it's very small group coaching, but it is coaching. It's talking about the problems you have at the time. And we have our flagship one-to-one coaching, either monthly, fortnightly, or weekly. So if you want details of any of those, please let me know. The calendar links are on the thing, so you can either book in for a I've put those links in the wrong way round. I apologize for that. So you can either book into a 2-hour strategy session, or you can book in just for a virtual coffee call and we'll just sit down and have a chat. One of the things I'm really missing is those social chats over at work where you bump into somebody in the office and have a good old chat. So if anybody does want a virtual coffee at any point, please pop one in my diary. I'd be delighted to speak to any and all of you. And if you want, say, a 2-hour strategy session, please book that in as well. And our workshop, which is on Eventbrite, is on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I'll just check to see if there are any questions. Simon, I am more than happy to do that. I'd love to. I'll contact you afterwards. Belinda, bounce back loans. Some people we know have been having trouble getting them because their banks aren't working with the BBA at the moment. Is there any way that we can circumvent that at all? Is there anybody we can go to if we can't? Yeah, we've because we have such a good network of coaches, we've been hearing lots of different stories about different banks. NatWest seemed to be very good, and you've got NatWest is very slow, and Metrobank isn't working at all. So it's all very odd. It all seems to be very mixed. What we're hearing from everybody else. Oh, it's funny you said that about Santander because we've had very good reports from some of our other coaches. So I think we're seeing very mixed. Belinda probably knows much more about this than anyone else, but you know, we have had very mixed reviews on what it is all about. You know, who's being good and who's not. Maybe it depends on the branch. Not sure. Well, that is us. Thank you very, very much again for your time. I really enjoyed going through this session with you and talking about the strategy session, talking about what to do when you get back to work. I would love it if you could pop a review on to our LinkedIn profile just to say that it was good, because we are trying to help as many people as possible. Of course, if you didn't enjoy it, please speak to me before you put the review up, and we'll see what we can do to help you. If you did enjoy it, then my name's Angela Turton. I'm an action coach, and I really would like to help your business. Thank you very much for listening.